All right, so today we're here with Barry Altland, and he is going to be our speaker for our next chapter meeting. And he is author of Engaging the Head, Heart, and Hands of a Volunteer. And he is going to be talking with us about engagement. Very hot topic today, engagement with the employees. So we're going to just start off with our first question, which is, what is otherliness and how does it affect leadership capabilities?
Yeah, Tracy, it's a great question, and I love throwing this word around, otherliness. In fact, it makes an appearance about 70 times in the book, but the reality is that it's not really a word that's recognized in the dictionary, yet as I throw it out in front of large groups and workshops and conferences, it's amazing to me how people embrace the concept and really kind of get what it means, even though it's not officially a word. So I define it as placing the needs, wants, and desires of others ahead of our own. And from my perspective, it is a core leadership tenet. It's something that a leader needs to hold in their heart and really live in their daily practice to be truly effective as a leader. So when we talk about how important it is to leadership capabilities, it is a learnable skill to a degree, but there's something that has to exist in the heart that really drives those behaviors for a leader. So to me, it's I hate to categorize leaders into two different categories because it oversimplifies everything. But the truth is that as a leader, you either have the heart for it or you don't.
I agree. I totally agree. Now, that may kind of explain why engagement is such a mystery. I mean, it's such a hot topic today, and it seems so straightforward that the more you engage with your employees, the more they're going to be productive and happier, and you're going to retain more employees. So, why is it so hard to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I find that it's best explained by the way that I have defined the difference between management and leadership. And if anybody's ever Googled management versus leadership, and I encourage anybody and everybody to do that, you're going to find millions of hits. There are a lot of opinions out there on this topic of management and leadership. And I add yet another definition to the fray. And the way that I look at it is that management focuses on policy, procedure, process, practice, what I call the four lowercase p's, whereas leadership focuses on the one capital P, and that's people. And I love asking the question in a workshop environment, so, okay, so which one is more important? Because it's a bit of a trick question. They're both equally important, but the reality is that what gets more attention is the management stuff because it's a bit more cut and dry. It's a bit more black and white, and people, it's easier for leaders, managers in this case, to get their arms around it. Whereas the leadership stuff, the people stuff, it's fuzzy, it's nebulous, it's something that really is in the heart. There's emotions that are involved in it, and that's what makes it difficult. We are so prone to calling the people skill stuff soft skills, but I continue to challenge that, thinking if they're soft skills, why are they so hard for leaders to really get their arms around and embrace? So to me, that's why I think engagement is a challenge, is because it's fuzzy, it's nebulous, it's something that it's a bit more of a moving target, and it really comes from the heart of the individual.
Which might kind of lead to our next question here and talking about the difference between some of the coaching techniques we might have used in the past and coaching for engagement.
Yeah, coaching is a word that gets thrown around in a lot of different capacities. And again, I add yet another to the mix. And I specifically define coaching as conducting regularly scheduled one-on-one conversations between the leader and the team member. And those conversations are focused on only two things: the team member's performance and the team member's development. And I have often seen in organizational contexts the word coaching thrown around and used in a lot of different ways, sometimes even as a mask for disciplinary conversations. And that's where I think it gets kind of sticky, and where the word may be misused and misleading for some leaders and some organizations. So I really think that those conversations, those meaningful, intentional, structured conversations that happen or should be happening between a leader and their team member on an ongoing basis are really the core to engagement, because it's in that meaningful conversation that the real stuff happens. And the book professes that engagement really happens one person at a time.
Now, how does, which leads us to the next question, how does a coach find the time to differentiate with all of his various employees?
Well, that's the number one pushback that leaders in any capacity have is, really, you're asking me to sit down and have all of these scheduled conversations with everybody who reports to me? And the response to that is, yes, that really should always have been an essential part of leadership. But yet many organizations are really just getting to that point where they're beginning to build that into their leadership expectations. And that's where you begin to differentiate the needs and the wants and desires and the specific gifts and skills and experiences of every one of your team members. And you find out what their intrinsic motivators are and what's driving them. And it's only through those ongoing conversations, not the once a year performance management type conversations, but the ongoing conversations, that you really get some insight into what's driving a person. And when you create that environment for an entire team, then you've got a team that's moving in a common direction and working toward achieving common goals.
Excellent. Now, I imagine another pushback you get is, how do you measure engagement?
I'm not sure that engagement can really be measured. And I know that I'm shooting a lot of things out of the water when I make that statement. But the reality is that organizations already have their business metrics in place. Every organization, no matter who they are and what they are and who they serve, they already have numbers that have meaning to them. And so I really challenge organizations to go back to those numbers, because if you have a workforce, if you've got groups of teams who are wholly engaged and you have leaders who are doing the right thing, I think it's a natural outcome that you're going to meet your business metrics. Of course, environment notwithstanding, there are sometimes external factors that have an impact on that. But organizations really need to focus on the things that which they can control. And that leadership component and that engagement component, leaders can have a significant influence on that I believe leads directly to business results. Now, I say all that, and I don't exclude the value of engagement surveying, because I think that any data and any numbers that an organization can get its hands on brings value. But as that value is brought, I think that we need to be careful not to overextend its value or to overinterpret its value, but to keep that those engagement surveys in their proper frame of mind. In fact, I know of some organizations who will do annual surveys or regularly scheduled engagement surveys, and then they begin to recognize and reward leaders and teams based upon the increase in those numbers. And it places an undue focus on those engagement numbers, when I think the focus really needs to be on the existing business metrics. So I know that's a roundabout way of answering the question, but there are numbers and there are metrics that already exist within organizations. And to me, that's the real measure of engagement. The goal, engagement is not the end game. Engagement that leads to performance and leads to sustained performance, so that people choose to stay with an organization for a long period of time. Those are the real outcomes that we desire.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And we had kind of touched about this on earlier. Now, assuming the manager or the coach has the heart, because I know you say that's kind of the first place to start, how do we as talent development professionals teach this as a soft skill?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that, and it goes back to what we said before, that teaching the heart that's pretty tough to do. I think that as talent development professionals, what we can do is through business communication and woven into our learning events and the way that we influence the culture of an organization, that we can extol the value of leaders who really create an environment that that enhances engagement for their team members. And we can help leaders to learn the coaching skill. In fact, if I suggest that especially any talent development professional who is in any way touching leadership development, if they have not partnered with their executive leadership and leaders across the organization and continued to impress upon them the importance of building a coaching culture, then there's an opportunity that's missed. And for me, that's the key. Is you really need to work on building a culture where leaders are just engaging in these meaningful conversations as a natural course of their business, not as an added responsibility to what they do, but really built into the very essence of their leadership role. So talent development professionals, no matter their capacity, they're continuing to extol the value and the virtue of that engagement component and those meaningful conversations, getting leaders and team members together and focus on those important pieces of performance and development. And I think when talent development professionals are doing that, then they're really serving their organization at their best.
Wow, that is a lot of information that we've covered in just a few minutes. I can't wait to the chapter meeting to see all the other tidbits we're going to learn. And what do you want us to come away with from the chapter meeting?
Is that I think that talent development professionals, learning and development folks, you've got a role to play in this. And it's a pretty significant role, but we also need to make sure that we keep that role in its proper perspective, because if talent development or if human resources alone is driving this initiative, it is doomed to fail. And that's the thing that we really need to keep in mind, is it's only through the partnership with leadership and making sure that leaders at all levels are really lockstep and they're moving in the same direction and they're embracing and role modeling the coaching practice, then it really gets built into the culture, and every single team member begins to understand that, wow, these conversations, it's not a punishment, it's not a beatdown, it's not I'm being called to the principal's office. It's these chats, this is just what we do, and I look forward to them because it's meaningful face time with my leader. I get to talk about the things that are important to me, and I get to really focus on those things that are going to help me to do my best work. And when talent development professionals are doing this up and down and across the organization, and they're building that, they're supporting the building that into the culture, then they're really serving their organization at their highest. So let's take it off of our shoulders and assume that it's ours to build, but instead let's put ourselves in a support role and a partnership role so that we're helping the organization and the culture to grow in that direction. So again, it's talking out of both sides of my mouth. I acknowledge that, but it's helping talent development professionals to say, here's where I need to focus, while not shouldering all of the responsibility, because when I do that, it's doomed to fail because it becomes seen as an HR initiative or a talent development initiative and not as an organizational initiative.
No, it really makes total sense. We're much more of an assistant coach type model, where versus we're going to be giving you the skills and you're going to be responsible for learning them, and kind of that directive type of view. Well, Barry, thank you so much for taking time out today to do the Hangout with us. And we are going to have this out this afternoon and hopefully get some people pumped up to come to the chapter meeting.
Well, Tracy, I'm looking forward to engaging with the members who are present that evening, and we're going to have a lively, interactive conversation that focuses on these topics and beyond. So really looking forward to it next month.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.